Hello and welcome to Airheads, a not-so-serious look at the serious business of royal rumours, gossip and gowns. I'm Tom.
And I'm Maeve.
And the new Fab Four have finally been unmasked.
Prince Charles has at last figured out how to get the spotlight that he has long craved. You know, we thought it was going to be Prince Edward and Sophie Wessex. Then
Did we?
Did
we?
We were told it was going to be Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. But all along, Charles knew what the plan was. It was going to be Prince William, Kate Middleton, Camilla Parker-Bowles, and Prince Charles. There's your new Fab Four, guys. What do you think?
This was pretty big. It was their first joint outing in 9 years when they went to the Defence Medical Rehabilitation Centre near Loughborough to talk to disabled veterans.
So they were given a tour of the facility by its commanding officer, Captain Alison Hoffman. They met patients undergoing therapy. They visited a prosthetics workshop. And then the grand finale, they stopped at a gym where a game of wheelchair basketball was underway. And from this final stop, we got the front page pictures that everyone... Well, was anyone dying to see? People went crazy over these pictures.
So Will got a lend off Major Les Reed, who let him use his wheelchair in order to shoot some hoops on the basketball court. And it only took him 6 tries.
And on his 6th attempt, he got an assist from Pa, as supposedly what he calls Prince Charles. Charles pushed him a bit closer by placing his hands around his son's neck and jokingly shaking him, according to the Evening Standard.
Which, doesn't sound that loving, really.
Other people said that he gave him a tender squeeze. There was a lot of language around this about it being very touching, very affectionate, a very poignant moment between father and son. One of the questions we were asked by one of our listeners this week was, do we think it's genuine? Tom, do we think it's genuine?
I mean, fundamentally, no. Because I think this was, really planned. I think that they knew with this particular foursome that they wanted to show really strong intergenerational, familial bond. So I think they had this in mind all along. And I think it's very interesting that you finally get some display of affection in this family only after Harry and Meghan have left.
I think it was completely staged. I don't think there was anything genuinely affectionate here. Maybe they pal around like this at home as well. I find that very hard to believe. But after seeing these pictures and hearing people like Rebecca English at the Daily Mail and the front page of the Express announcing this as the new Fab Four, as we had said last week, this seemed like a very determined effort to position them in that way. And clearly everyone fell in line and called them that as they wish to be called. But these photos to me were just taking it way over the top. I certainly side-eyed at it.
Yeah, it felt like overkill. And I mean, I was kind of thinking, what do the Sussexes think about this? Seeing this from over in America. I didn't want to go into it with a really cynical eye. I didn't want to think they were actually planning this to be as hurtful as possible. But you can't really overlook that possibility when you think Will took a commercial flight with Kate and the kids right in the middle of Harry and Meghan's private jet scandal. It was the worst possible point for the Sussex optics. And it really didn't look like a show of family support at all.
No, the opposite.
Absolutely. So because that happened, I kind of feel like it's okay to approach this event with a little bit of cynicism. I mean, this is a military charity that deals with disabled veterans. This is very much in Harry's wheelhouse. It's work that he has championed incredibly publicly for years. And now to see his family having so much fun at one of these events, it seems like almost quite a pointed dig.
I mean, it's certainly very pointed. I don't know if it's a dig at Harry and Meghan, but it does make you think all the times people said that other members of the family couldn't say anything or show any support for Harry and Meghan because that's just not how they do things. They're not a very affectionate family. That's not how things work. And then we're getting this totally outrageously over the top display of affection between family members after Harry and Meghan have left kind of puts paid to this nonsense idea that like they couldn't have ever done any kind of photo opportunity to show support for Harry and Meghan like this, because clearly they can.
So I don't know, there's just so much that rings false about this, but it gave us some great photos.
I mean, people were very keen to tell us about what a wonderful relationship Charles and Will have now. We got Sally Bedell-Smith, Charles's biographer, speaking to Katie Nichols at Vanity Fair, saying one sensed a spontaneous warmth between them. Not an ounce of spontaneity in this photo op. Apart from the very visible bond, there's plenty of evidence indicating a closer alignment between Charles and William. They keep telling us this, but we can't see it, you know? Yeah. She also had a family friend who said, there was a time when Charles was hurt, when William turned down the chance to take over the Prince's trust, and I think he worried about the future. But not now. He has every faith in William and respects and admires the work he and Catherine do with the Royal Foundation. I'm calling bullshit on this. Yeah. I do not believe this.
No.
I mean, the Prince's trust is long established. It's something Charles is very proud of. Anything I've read about Charles is that this is his big legacy thing that he really wanted to pass on to his kids. Neither of them wanted it.
Yeah.
And he obviously expected that Will would. And instead, Will has set up the Royal Foundation, which has, you know, I would think of its most notable projects as being the ones that Harry and Meghan did.
Yeah.
Or like Heads Together, which Harry was also a part of.
They're yet to like do something, just the two of them, that is really tangible.
And definitive.
Only last week we were talking about Charles going to TK Maxx, where there were like people who'd been brought through the Prince's Trust program in order to get employment. So like an actual physical result. We're yet to see really anything like that from Will and Kate.
I think so much of the conversation around this was like, oh, this is so sweet. They're really showing like what a strong family they are and how they're really trying to push forward, and that's so caring and so much fondness between them. And as I said, I think all of that is very forced. I do think it's interesting that Charles is really spearheading this movement that for the future of the monarchy, and that he is the one who clearly sees that damage has been done.
Yeah.
Both by the fallout from Harry and Meghan's departure, and obviously from the whole fucking nightmare disaster of Prince Andrew and his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. So Charles is the one who sees that we need to do something, and maybe he can only think in like absolutist photo ops that are so overcalculated that they ring quite empty. But I think as a symptom of him wanting to try and protect the monarchy, it does tell us a lot about how he sees the current state of the monarchy and his role in having to protect it and preserve it.
Because, I mean, he's the only one who has something real at stake here. Like, the monarchy isn't going to come crashing down before the Queen dies. She's fine. She can just kind of keep doing this, like, stupid crap, and there's enough people around to clean it up for her. But, Charles knows that there will come a time in the not too distant future where he has to take on that role, and he needs something left, and he doesn't want that period of change, and that that I don't think there's going to be a smooth transition necessarily in terms of public opinion. He doesn't want that rocked by anything unnecessary or untoward. Maybe
we sound like we're being unduly harsh on this, but it just came as a real smack in the face after all the stuff we've been told from Palisades about how royal protocol would forbid any kind of show of affection or support from Harry and Meghan while they were still part of the family. I guess the other big talking point out of this outing in Loughborough was Kate's outfit. So very Kate, billions of buttons, and
so many buttons.
Very military in style, which I guess was appropriate given the venue. But also, it was designed by Sarah Burton, the creative director of Alexander McQueen.
Or Sarah Button, as Kate calls her.
And this was the 10th anniversary of the death of Alexander McQueen, or Lee McQueen was his name. People were really raving about this as a tribute to him, and Looking at this as a tribute made me think about how far the brand has come since his death and what a part Kate has played in that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to be too harsh on the outfit, but like, it's not that much of a tribute to have taken Alexander McQueen's work and made it look like it comes from M&S. This is incredibly palatable, which just seems so far from what he did.
I wouldn't say it looks like it comes from M&S. I think you're being too tough on it there. But I do think Kate's version of McQueen, and obviously that's very different from what Sarah Burton does in her collections for McQueen outside of her royal work, but Kate's version of it, which is the one that most people see because she's one of the most photographed women in the world, it's such a sanitized version of what he was doing. And I know we watched the documentary about McQueen, which is on Netflix. It's really good if you haven't seen it. And McQueen claimed to have stitched the words "I'm a seabird" into the lining of a jacket made for Prince Charles when he was working on Savile Row. So this was before he had his own label. And, you know, that kind of tells you everything you need to know about McQueen's views on the monarchy. And to have his brand now so closely associated with the monarchy, I don't know how he would feel about that. I'm totally speculating, but it just really struck me as such a strange tribute to somebody that was so known for such a different kind of fashion. Kate went a lot more casual for her other outing this week, which was another stop on the 5 Big Questions tour of the UK, promoting her survey on 5 Big Questions for the under 5s. This is part of her early years initiative. We've talked about it before, and she did that sort of 24-hour tour around the UK, and now she's continuing it. She visited Northern Ireland first, the Ark Open Farm in Newtownards near Belfast, and again met with lots of animals, which we were happy to see.
She once again met guinea pigs.
But even better than the guinea pigs was the snake.
Oh, the snake called Sophie.
Kate with a snake. Kate's Britney moment.
I actually really liked the caption that the Sun used on the photo of her with the snake, which was, "The fearless Duchess seemed calm as she met the snake."
Truly fearless.
But then she went on to Scotland on the same day and visited the Social Bite Cafe in Aberdeen, which aims to end homelessness in Scotland. So it was another one of these whirlwind tours.
And very, very casual. She wore those Penelope Chilvers boots she's had for like 15 years and everybody's crazy about. And skinny jeans and a wax jacket, and just looked very like Sloane-y country Kate. It really hit me though that surveys are the gardens of 2020.
Yeah.
We are going to be beat over the head with this survey for the rest of the year.
She took to the airwaves this week, marking her debut in the world of podcasting. So she appeared on Happy Mum, Happy Baby with Giovanna Fletcher to talk about the 5 Big Questions survey.
Happy Mum, Happy Baby is the biggest parenting podcast in the UK. Giovanna Fletcher is very well known, both as a podcaster and as an author. She is married to Tom Fletcher, who used to be in the band McFly.
Ooh.
And I think this was a really, really good avenue for Kate to go down. It did seem really surprising to me because so much of what we've heard about Kate is that she doesn't like public speaking. She's not very confident in that area, but you wouldn't have known that at all from this. Like, she did say at the start that she was feeling nervous, but then when it actually got into the conversation, she really held her own.
Yeah, and I mean, it was like a good combination of, she was very much within her comfort zone. She was talking about like her experience of motherhood, but she also hit all of her kind of PR points, talking about obviously the survey, but mentioning her work for Holocaust Memorial Day, and also Heads Together as well. So she kind of balanced the kind of professional Kate with the personal Kate.
Yeah, it was really seemed like she'd gotten a lot of media training for this.
Yeah.
And it really paid off. She really straddled that line between the professional and the personal, so she gave away just enough to make it seem like she was being open, but really we didn't get anything that new.
Yeah.
She repeated a lot of the stuff we've heard before about how she wanted the kids to have a normal upbringing, and she mentioned these quite like mundane things like watching the fire together on a rainy day, or how she loves this photo of Charlotte smelling a bluebell or trying to cook sausages on a bonfire in the rain and those kind of things, which to me are like so famous five, Blyton style childhood moments. Like, that's not my childhood. What kind of disappointed me was that Kate didn't just come out and say, like, I'm coming from a position of really great privilege, obviously.
Yeah.
That I think she was really determined to sound the relatey Katie that people love, and certainly judging by the reception so far, she succeeded in that, and people are really gushing over how relatable she was. But I wonder, how relatable is it to have someone saying, it's such a great environment to spend time in outdoors, building those quality relationships without the distractions of I've got to cook and I've got to do this. And actually it's so simple.
It's so not simple for so many people.
Like, of course it's simple when you have a cook and you have a nanny and you have a variety of assistants and your own parents who can step in at a moment's notice to help, And she did keep talking about how it's important to have a village around the kid, but she didn't really talk about how, in her circumstances, she has a much greater village than anyone else.
Yeah. I was kind of hoping we might get a little bit more from her about the survey and about this work than kind of statements like this. If you look at who is caring and looking after and nurturing children at this vital period from pregnancy to the age of 5, parents and carers are right at the heart of that, and families are right at the heart of that. It just seems like so basic. Like
mind-numbing.
Like, this doesn't need to be said,
And saying it as if it's an observation that she's making after spending 8 years working on something, it's just like, come on, Kate. Like, we know you have people that can help you come up with stuff better than this.
Yeah. I liked when she said they were discussing that questions on the survey, and she said, with some of these questions, we didn't want to be too specific. Well, like, mission absolutely fucking accomplished.
I know, and it's tricky because, we're not parents. We're not listening to this and relating to her experiences of pregnancy or raising her children. So perhaps we're being unduly critical about those things, but it just seems, as somebody who is listening to this very concerted effort to come across as relatable, there are moments that really stand out as extremely unrelatable and really paint her as a person of such privilege and who is unaware of their privilege.
I would be kind of interested to hear from any listeners who have kids as to whether they found this kind of reassuring or stressful, because, like Maeve said, we don't have any experience with kids and things, but it seems to me like I would find it stressful if I found out that I have to also find time to take my kids to a bonfire or to find some bluebells, like, in addition to everything else that parents have to do.
Yeah, I mean, when you have a country house that's been handed to you as a wedding gift from your grandparents, maybe it's easier to find the bluebells than if you're living in Birmingham or you're like another really industrial city.
She did also talk about hypnobirthing, which I thought was like a bit of a like wow moment to me. I didn't know. Did we know before that she had done this kind of stuff?
I think there had been some stories about it. I do remember that there had been very different kinds of stories about when Meghan was said to be practicing hypnobirthing or meditation or any of those things. It was presented as very like woo woo.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can all like imagine what the reaction to like Meghan going on a podcast and talking about hypnobirthing would be compared to this. But yeah, I was kind of like, fair play, Kate. I like the sound of that.
And absolutely not fair play, Will, who didn't help her at all with this. Yeah. As she said, it was just something she wanted to do for herself.
Yeah, apparently he didn't chant sweet nothings at her. Speaking of Meghan, though, she went to Stanford University on Tuesday with Harry to talk about their foundation.
I thought this was so funny. Like, coming after all the JP Morgan stuff, it was like, hey, we're meeting with some gross bankers, but we're also meeting with some very respectable academics. So Hello had a quote from a palace source saying, as part of their ongoing work to develop and build their new charitable organisation, they had a brainstorming session and meetings with academics and professors. Apparently they were there for about 7 hours.
Oh my God.
And they
a full day's work.
And they were greeted at Stanford by the university's president, Mark Tesser-Levine. Oh, and they flew commercial, just for people keeping track. Stanford is kind of an interesting place to me because it doesn't seem like the kind of place that would really be seduced by the idea of meeting royals.
Yeah, it's so like techie around there. It's like in the heart of Silicon Valley. It's known to kind of have a lot of ties with that industry.
But it's also known for its graduate school of business, which has a non-profit track and also a centre for social innovation where the professors and students research impact investing and responsible sourcing. And those are all things that sound very Harry and Meghan.
Yeah.
But we don't know anything else yet. But I do think it was a real gear change after all the JP Morgan stuff last week.
Yeah.
Somebody else who seems to have been unhappy about all the JP Morgan stuff is Goldman Sachs, who were very quick to get out this story that they had also been talking to Prince Harry.
Oh my god, battle of the bankers. Harry has apparently been in talks with Goldman Sachs about giving a speech for them as well. It's as part of an interview series for employees that will be on YouTube. He's in pretty good company, though, because both David Beckham and Gwyneth Paltrow have previously done them.
It's called Talks at GS, and it is not a paid event, but the Mirror claims that it could pave the way for the Sussexes to forge a lucrative future relationship. We should also note that Omid Scobie pointed out on his podcast, The AirPod, this week, that apparently Harry and Meghan did not get paid for their JP Morgan appearance.
So they must be so focused on kind of like laying this groundwork, meeting the right people, being seen in these kind of investment circles that, but wanting to avoid any kind of receiving bad money maybe, or, trying to be...
Too late now. They've been tarred with that everywhere. The Telegraph reported that the Talks at GS event would be focused on mental health and the military and would be linked with one of Harry's current patronages, such as the Invictus Games. That sounds very plausible to me.
Yeah.
Also, they had a source saying that discussions with one of Harry's patronages and Goldman Sachs have been ongoing for about a year. So even before they were planning to leave, this was in the works.
But it's not the only video that we've been hearing about, because Meghan dropped a new behind-the-scenes video from her time working with Edward Enninful on her issue of British Vogue.
Yeah, Edward Enninful announced this week that the September issue, the Forces for Change issue guest edited by Meghan, was the fastest selling issue in the history of British Vogue. It sold out in 10 days, and it was also the biggest selling issue of the past decade. And there seemed to be a lot of debate around whether Meghan should have been broadcasting this fact, because she posted a video on Instagram TV of the two of them talking about the making of the magazine. This was reportedly filmed in Edward Enninful's house, and they called up some of the women who'd featured on the cover, as we'd heard so many times before that Meghan had called Sinead Burke and Adwoa Abwa and various other people to thank them for taking part. And we'd heard so much about that, but we were only getting this video now. The reason for this, supposedly according to Rebecca English in the Mail, is that they had tried to put the video out several times since last summer, but had been blocked by palace officials because the video was seen to be too inane and frivolous. As well as that, the aides feared that the image of Meghan wearing a party hat with a blower in her mouth, which she pulls out 2 party hats for the pair of them at the end of the video, and they do like a little very tiggish kind of like cutesy pose. But they feared that this image could come back to haunt Meghan and could even be made into a Megxit meme. Like, this was something they were worrying about last summer when apparently nobody had heard about Megxit until January.
Yeah.
Okay. But now, it's all guns blazing over there. They have a royal insider telling Rebecca English, in all honesty, people are just cringing about this. People have this idea that palace advisors are a bit po-faced, but that simply isn't true, right? Just look at the brilliant footage of the Queen when she took part in that James Bond skit with Daniel Craig to highlight the London Olympics. But this just leaves Meghan open to ridicule. It just goes to show where their priorities lie. Likes and clicks online.
Clicks online! Oh, yeah, I mean, I loved this video. I thought it was so funny. I was like so surprised when I saw it. I wasn't expecting it at all.
I mean, it was so Meghan. Like,
Yeah.
it was so earnest in that very tiggish way of hers. Oh my goodness, and that kind of stuff. But at the same time, there was like a bit towards the end when I think it was Adwoa Aboa cursed.
Yeah.
And Meghan seemed to like laugh or just like have like a very normal reaction to it that was like, oh, this is like you being natural and not you being like,
Yeah.
what's appropriate for a royal.
Yeah. And you kind of imagine that maybe that would have been edited out if they had ever been allowed to post this video.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I think all the discussion around whether they should have posted it is so ridiculous. Like, I know people were like, well, it's very different because it's all to do with sales and making money for a big company. And I think there's like a couple of things here. Like, on one hand, it shows that the Sussexes aren't totally against the media and they're supporting some journalists. But also, this is like a big accomplishment for Meghan. This was a really big project that was all to do with promoting her causes and, yes, promoting the Sussex brand, but also charitable causes, and it did that so effectively that it has become, you know, the biggest selling issue of the decade. And it seems like so mean to say like, well, she shouldn't be broadcasting that kind of accomplishment.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as well, when people talk about sales in terms of magazines, that's also talking about readership. So it's not just like boasting about the amount of money that's been made, but it's the number of people who've been exposed to her message, and that's all wrapped up in this talk of like it just has to be called sales because that's how you measure it.
But people were very upset about it, which I thought was quite disappointing. We also heard this week that Harry and Meghan had closed their Buckingham Palace office and let go of their 15 staff, which was presented as this really cruel, devastating thing for them to do to their loyal staff. But I thought everyone knew they were going to do this. Like, obviously, if they kept this Buckingham Palace office when they're over in Canada or America or whatever, and they kept their 15 staff working over here, there'd be outrage that sovereign grant money was being used to pay staff for a couple who don't live in the country and aren't working royals anymore.
Yeah. I mean, we've said it so many times, but it's like, damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, they can't win. But I just thought it was so weird to see people being, you know, so shocked by this when they basically told us this was going to happen. But the Mail did note that a small team of people will continue to be employed privately in London to work on Travelist, the mysterious eco-friendly travel initiative that Harry announced a few months ago and we have heard nothing of
Absolutely
since.
nothing about it, yeah. And apparently, according to commentator Neil Sean, who was speaking to Fox News, they won't be going to Prince Andrew's 60th birthday. So he said, a mole told me it's an open secret they declined the invite. But it's not very nice for the Queen, as whatever people say and think, he is still her son, and she wanted her close family around her. The reason given is that they already have commitments on the day, but also plan to send a gift or card and a video message to be played at the party.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
What is Meghan going to say in the video message for Prince Andrew's 60th birthday?
I don't think she'll be in it.
I just can't imagine what kind of atmosphere would that create at the party. Like, oh, let's play the message from Harry and Meghan.
Like, what, like on a massive screen? Or...
But also, like, of fucking course they're not going to this birthday party. Yeah. Why the hell would they fly back from Canada to go to his birthday party? We've never even really heard that they were close.
Yeah.
And you don't want to have any connection to do with him anyway at the moment. Or ever, really. But the idea that it's being presented as this cruel snub to the Queen, and it's not nice for the Queen. Andrew is not nice for the Queen.
Yeah,
Andrew
exactly.
fucking up all the time and bringing this like disgusting mess into the Queen's lap is like, he's the one who's not being nice.
And it's just so funny that everyone knows you can't frame this as like they're being so mean to Andrew, because nobody has any sympathy for Andrew at the moment other than the Queen. So they have to like pin it on her. Which is yet more of this like confusing narrative over like whether the Queen needs to be protected or whether she's a boss bitch.
Neil Sean also said that Harry and Meghan might not even come back for Beatrice's wedding. Fans will have to wait and see if Meghan and Harry attend this event. he had another quote from another mole. Favourite word. Beatrice really got on well with Meghan and is sad she left, but so far they have been unable to keep that friendship going. Others, though, say that Meghan values her own PR and believes any association right now with the brand of York may not be that great for the couple's earning power outside the royal family, which is a great point.
Yeah.
Very tactical, Meghan, but also from a PR point of view, over here, people are going to be really angry if Harry and Meghan don't come back for Beatrice's wedding.
Yeah. I don't really think Andrew's going to care that much about them not being at his birthday, because he seems to be well on his way to being back to royal duties, and I'm fucking furious.
Yeah, we actually completely forgot to talk about this last week, but some more information has come out about it, about Andrew being welcomed back into the royal fold by doing some kind of hush-hush work as the Queen's messenger.
So it was revealed by the Chinese ambassador to Britain, Liu Xiaoming, that Andrew delivered a message to them on behalf of the Queen. So this was at a dinner that the ambassador had hosted, at which Fergie, Beatrice and Edo were also present.
But Eugenie wasn't, because yeah. Eugenie is smart.
She's the smartest of the lot. But he then later tweeted saying, "Her Majesty the Queen sent an encouraging message to President Xi and the Chinese people. At the critical time of fighting coronavirus, I express my sincere sympathy for Chinese people and pray for the speedy control and victory over the virus. It was conveyed by the Duke of York." He continued in another tweet, "My wife and I invited the Duke of York and his family to our residence and celebrated Lunar New Year. Their enthusiasm for China and contribution to China-UK relations is highly appreciated."
What the fuck? What the fuck? How rude is it to invite a member of the royal family to your house and have the Queen send over fucking Andrew, who's not even a working royal anymore? With coronavirus going on, you want to send somebody who actually can show like a strong solidarity and not someone who you should be ashamed to have in your house.
Yeah.
Obviously, the Queen thinks this is like a very kind thing of her to do because Andrew is her alleged favourite son, her most beloved, so to send him, you know, her most trusted emissary. But really, this is what Charles should be doing, or Anne, or fucking Edward and Sophie if you're so pleased with them.
Yeah.
But sending Andrew, I think, is such a snub. And the idea that you know, you can send your disgraceful son to convey a message about something so serious is incredibly disrespectful.
But in addition to this being very disrespectful to the Chinese, this was also, I felt like, totally deceiving the British public, because everyone has been pretty vocal about wanting Andrew removed from royal duties. We were all outraged by his behaviour and like disgusted by his interview. So to have this kind of secret mission, which seems to me to be like testing the waters to see like how soon can he come back into official duties, was absolutely disgusting to me.
Especially because they made such a big song and dance about Andrew stepping down and how he had chosen to step down and that he wouldn't be doing any royal duties for the foreseeable future. Is this not a royal duty?
It certainly seems like one. This is an official message from the Queen.
And we heard that Harry and Meghan weren't allowed to represent the Queen anymore, even though they had really wanted to continue representing the Queen. Why are they not allowed to represent the Queen? And Andrew, this reprehensible, the most reprehensible member of the family, somebody who really has a strong reason to never represent the Queen again, unlike Harry and Meghan, he is just trotted out to do this kind of work, this very, very important work. This is just a terrible look for the Queen. Again, casting doubt on her decision-making capabilities.
Yeah, clearly not listening to anyone. But I think we should try and lower our blood pressure by moving on to our quote of the week. Did you have one?
Yeah, my quote of the week was what I thought was the most fascinating, as Kate would say, moment of her interview with Giovanna Fletcher, where she was asked about presenting Prince George to the world outside the hospital for the first time at the Lindo Wing. And she said, she was kind of laughing, and she said, "It was slightly terrifying, I'm not gonna lie." And like, even just the casual way she said "gonna," you know, that was like actually sounded like real candor from her.
Yeah.
And she went on, clearly trying to cover then, you know, to be more diplomatic, and said everyone had been so supportive, and both William and I were really conscious that this was something that everyone was excited about, and, you know, we're hugely grateful for the support that the public had shown us, and actually for us to be able to share that joy and appreciation with the public I felt was really important. But equally, it was coupled with a newborn baby and inexperienced parents and the uncertainty of what that held, so there were all sorts of mixed emotions.
Very diplomatically put, because, you know, she's not going to be sacrificing her position as, like, beloved by the people by making any of the same mistakes as Harry and Meghan. No, she wants to make sure everyone knows that they appreciate the goodwill of the public. But this is good, I think, to, you know, let everyone know that there are other things going on. And
it also makes her seem more human than anything else she says in the podcast. You know, when she's not being the super mummy trying to make sausages on the bonfire in the rain, you know, perfect yummy mummy stuff, this is like showing vulnerability, and that actually, you know, maybe she didn't want to go stand outside in high heels and full glam with her new baby. And I thought that was just a really nice and revealing and relatable moment from Kate.
Do you know who was in full glam? It was our Fit for a Queen consort. So this was Camilla, who went to the Tower of London this week, sporting...
Finally, I hear some critics saying.
Well, she was wearing this pink pleated tweed coat dress by Anna Valentine, who is the person who designed her wedding dress. And it had sort of burgundy velvet panels and a collar. And she wore it with black suede knee boots and black leather gloves. I like it best when Camilla looks like she could be in Game of Thrones. And this was another kind of quite Joffrey-esque vibe.
I thought she looked great, though. It was really nice, bright colour and very interesting design details with the pleating and the mix of the tweed and the velvet. And she just looked very smart and polished and put together. I also thought it was kind of nice that it was the day before Valentine's Day, and she was both wearing pink and the same designer who made her wedding dress too when she got married to Prince Charles.
But she also wielded a dagger, which, you know, loves a double-edged sword.
A replica of Henry VIII's hunting dagger was presented to her to cut a cake, a very elaborate Tower of London themed cake, which was made by Camilla's favourite baker.
Oh. Well, that's a nice little detail. But I do think that Henry VIII is not necessarily the best monarch to associate with Valentine's Day. But obviously Charles was there, and he had some advice on how to cut the cake, because it's one of his favourite things to do. So he suggested that she run at the cake with this massive knife. And the constable of the tower said, "We could get you a job as an executioner." I loved Camilla's response to that, because she said, "That's probably my next job. It'll be off with their heads."
I can hear it in her voice. That's such a Camilla joke. They were there, by the way, to mark 535 years since the creation of the Yeoman Warders, or the Beefeaters as we know them, and to celebrate 50 years of the British Tourist Authority. And we got to see Charles inspecting the gold coronet he wore when he was having his investiture as Prince of Wales in Carnarvon Castle, as depicted on The Crown Season 3.
Yeah, he was probably comparing it to the telly version. Maeve, who was your first in line?
I think Kate was my first in line this week. I think she acquitted herself really well on the podcast. She came across like a real person.
Yeah.
And also very professional. I feel like she was clearly wary of how personal interviews with members of the royal family have gone down recently, but I thought it was a very strong representation of brand Cambridge. It did make me wonder why she hasn't been doing stuff like this for the last 9 years, and all the stuff we've heard about how she hates having to speak in public when she actually is quite good in these kind of circumstances. So I would hope that they would continue to do stuff like this. But I think it's like, you know, like her photos that she did for Holocaust Memorial Day, it's showing that they are diversifying a lot in their work, and I think that's a really good sign, particularly for Kate. And I thought it was, you know, a nice way of making the the surveys seem interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I think podcasting is really good for Kate. I hope she does more because it's like public speaking, but in kind of quite a private or personal kind of context. So I think she could do really well. Next week, we've got quite a busy one. We've got a lot of members out doing a lot of things. Charles is going to be in Gloucester on Monday getting some new shirts from Emma Willis Limited. And then he's off to Warwickshire on Tuesday to visit some sheltered housing. And then later in the week, he goes to Wales. He has a whole raft of engagements out there. But I think the main reason he's there is because he's opening a new Aston Martin factory.
Oh my God, and we're going to be getting the new James Bond soon. And we'll find out if his cameo actually came to fruition. The Queen's also going to be out this week to open a dental hospital. And Camilla will be around London doing some theatre events. But Kate and Will are taking the week off. Clearly after Kate's flurry of activity, they need a holiday already.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to be skiing. It's midterm over here, so the kids will be off school. But they'll be back shortly afterwards for their trip to Ireland.
Thanks so much for listening. If you like this episode, please leave us a 5-star review and tell a friend.
You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at AirheadsPod and on Facebook at Airheads.
And until next week.
We'll see you soon.
Absolutely.
Okay, lots of love.